I'm DJ Hellerman, the curator here at the SCAD Museum of Art, and today I'm joined by Emily Furr, whose exhibition StarTap is on view here at the museum. Emily, thanks for being here.
Sure, thanks for having me.
So as a quick introduction, Emily received her BFA in graphic design here from SCAD in 2000. In 2018, she received her MFA from Hunter, and Emily is represented by Sargent's Daughters, New York, and her work has been written about in Art Forum, Hyperallergic, and on ArtNet. And then this past year in 2019, I guess maybe a little over a year ago in 2019, Emily was the artist in residence at the Watermill Center. So Emily, thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a dream come true to have a show at SCAD.
Well, the show looks incredible. Before we kind of jump into it, I want to thank my colleague Ariella Wollens for initiating this exhibition and doing great work that has led to this conversation. So let's go back a little bit to start this conversation, maybe just a few years. I'm wondering what it was like for you as a SCAD student. You were a student here before the museum was even constructed.
I know, I can't believe it. So I was a SCAD student in 19, I won't say the exact year, but a long time ago. And I'm originally from Southern Illinois, a small town sort of close to St. Louis. So going to SCAD, kind of being away from my hometown and being at a really cool town and in a great art school, I thought it was surreal for me and really exciting. And I had always sort of been a drawer, drawing things, but I really loved computers and kind of learning about computers. So I was drawn to graphic design, and at the time it was kind of the dawn of Apple computers, and I loved it. I thought it was so exciting. So I did my BFA at SCAD, and I learned so much and grew so much. And then after that, I moved to New York City, and then I did the graphic design thing. I worked with all the major ones, Ogilvy, Gray, all of that. But, I was always drawing on the side at night. And I loved the technology of graphic design, but I didn't like the committee involved with every project and all the meetings. And your creativity kind of gets squashed pretty quickly. At least in sort of the line of business I was in. I don't think all graphic design is like that, but for me, it wasn't really who I was. I sort of have always had a hippie punk sensibility, and I was working for these corporations, and I was like, I don't know. So I was making art at night. I picked up oil painting. I was doing some portraiture, sort of like Caravaggio type, but with modern sets and backgrounds, and the people had modern clothing. And I enjoyed doing that. I kind of taught myself how to oil paint. And the work I was doing was good enough to get me into Hunter College MFA program. And it was that kind of was boot camp. Master's programs are like boot camp. So especially for me, I didn't have a lot of critique experience. So that was, hard, but it kind of gets sort of what you're trying to say with the work out of you. So when I graduated in 2018, I felt pretty good about sort of the iconography that I had developed at grad school. And I had my thesis show, and that's how the New York Gallery Sargent's Daughters discovered me.
Well, it's only been a couple of years, and now this exhibition is your first museum show, so congratulations. That's pretty incredible.
Thanks.
You want to talk about some of the work in the show?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. So here, this is a painting that actually titled the exhibition. It is called StarTap. So I'm wondering if you'd talk a little bit about this painting.
Sure. So I guess a big theme in my work is I'm kind of showing the cosmos, um, or something natural, along with sort of an industrial object, to show how they're kind of incongruent. I think with this particular painting, I was showing kind of how everything is made of atoms of stars and such, and even sort of these metal objects that we create are limitless in that sense.
I love the metaphor of a faucet to regulate the stars.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take a look at a couple of images of the installation.
Great. So I think we'll see the wallpaper later. There's a better picture later. It's fine now, but I got to do some wallpaper for the show, which was really exciting. And I got to use my graphic design skills, which was fun. But the show overall, I think it's a less confrontational than some of my work. There's a lot of cosmos in this show, kind of showing the vastness of the universe, but also sort of the cosmic void. I think we all feel kind of the void of nothingness and sort of the heaviness of being alive, and etc. The painting of I don't think it's an octagon, but of the shape on the right, is supposed to be sort of like an ice. Yeah, that one. And there's the wallpaper too. That is supposed to be a missile or a bullet shell, sort of encapsulated in ice or in a crystal. To me, I want to sort of showcase the ridiculousness of brutality, of war, of bullets, of missiles, how much energy we put into stuff like this, when it equals sort of nothing, just destruction. So I'm kind of showcasing this as if I'm stopping the bullet with ice or with a crystal, either me or nature itself.
The other day, one of the students pointed out they liked how the crystal structure was positioned at the edges of the painting, and they were really taken by how what a precariousness this seems to be caught between these. Like it could potentially fall, or kind of this crystallized figure around this symbol of violence might be precarious.
Sure, I do that a lot. I kind of trap objects within the barriers of the canvas because I do want it to feel either fragile or if it's as if it's trying to bust out of the canvas.
Yeah. A little bit about the wallpaper and like what decisions you made to make that wallpaper and how it came about.
Sure, the wallpaper I basically took some elements from an older paintings. One is from a rocket, from a painting I did called Deep Orbit. And it's basically a hollow rocket that looks rather phallic, which is something I also touch, no pun intended, in my work. Sort of the maleness of sort of war and how everything sort of looks phallic, or even even erotic. So I also in the wallpaper is a tongue, which also touches on the male gaze and sort of the eroticism of how eroticism and war are connected in bad ways.
Let's talk about this painting. It's the most recent painting in the exhibition, and it's also really, really big for you.
It's the biggest painting I've ever done. I think it's 8 feet by 6 feet. I didn't think I could pull it off. But it's kind of fun. I feel like it's a bunch of mini paintings in one. The painting's called Thirst Trap, and I am sort of mechanizing and funneling the universe. In the left hand side of the painting, you'll see a pinball, like a pinball plunger. The pinball is the planet, or a planet. I think it's Jupiter. It doesn't really matter. The planet is going to be plunged into this weird mechanism. It's going to be ground down into a tongue. So in a way, I'm saying human beings, or at least I'll say patriarchy, for lack of a better word. We kind of try to take control of nature and the cosmos and basically break it down into nothing. Just think of all the pollution that we've caused on the planet. And this is what I guess is the theme of the painting. Just we need to be in harmony with what's around us, rather than trying to be so brutal and dominant with everything, because it's obviously not working.
In this painting, we were talking about it. Like, how did you approach such a big canvas when typically, the size you're used to working on is a fraction of this?
I approached it very carefully. I don't know. I was sketching, and a lot of my processes, I still use computers. I think once you're a graphic designer, you kind of always think like one. So I use Photoshop and Illustrator a lot when I'm sketching. I think with this particular one, I would draw a little bit, put it into Photoshop, and then I would find something on the internet, put that on, like I think the coffee grinder. And I just kind of played with the Photoshop sketch until it looked right. And then I will do, a study, a little gouache study, just to make sure it doesn't look totally crazy. And then from there, I just went for it. And it took me, it didn't take as long as I thought. I was on ladders and such, but it's kind of fun to work on something that's outside of your comfort zone. I'm usually work pretty small, and I can even sit at a desk and paint. So this was nice to get out, just move a little bit.
So some of your work is at a smaller scale, but depicts a really vast expanse. Where Thirst Trap, with the painting we were just looking at, is a really, really big painting, but it has a very, very small planet in it. Could you talk a little bit about your use of scale in these?
Yeah, so generally I paint pretty small. I would say, 12 inches and smaller. There's something kind of interesting to me about painting about space and the cosmos, but painting about it so small, and even framing it as if it's kind of millisecond or a moment. It's interesting to me that the viewer has to walk up very close to see some of these paintings, and then they get there and it's a painting about space or something, which I think is kind of cool.
So this past year, you started making works on paper, the Acid Tongue series, which was a 2020 project for you, and we have a series of them installed in the show here. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about these Acid Tongue works on paper. I'll pull up a detail for us to look at a little bit closer, but this is a really, I think, beautiful installation shot.
Yeah, so there they are. This year, 2020, with the pandemic. Oh my God, what a year. So I have a 4-year-old, 3-year-old last year. And so a lot of parents were just like, oh my God, how are we going to get through this year? So for me, I was doing these paintings every parent knows you cannot do oil paintings around a toddler. It's just not a good idea. So I needed something that I could do at home while I was watching my child who was no longer in school. So I just started playing with gouache and doing small little gouache paintings. It's water soluble, there's not, it's non-toxic. So I was working on these, and I've kind of been lugging around these old magazines from the 60s and 70s. I love old magazines. I feel like magazines were the internet of the time. It's just kind of how we got our information. But I also love these ads that seem a little nefarious. And so I'm kind of doubling down on this sleaziness of these ads and putting a tongue with an acid tab, an LSD tab, as if to, kind of like the drug dealer on the playground, like, hey, come here, I got something for you. And that's where these collages came about. And I think for the show, there's 7 there that are in the same vein as these 2 ads.
When we were kind of discussing this, you said you gave a sound effect. I was like, what about these tongues? And you were like, yeah, it's like, yuck. That's what you said.
I know I use tongues a lot in my work, and to me, it's sort of the male gaze, kind of like that guy in the subway that flashes you or something. But the funny thing is I often use my own tongue and take a picture to put it in the sketch. So it's like Sigmund Freud, what would he say? I don't know.
I think it's fine. I want to talk about these 2 paintings, belt melt paintings. So they're kind of like a little series for you. There's Belt Melt 3 and Belt Melt 5 in the exhibition. And I'm wondering if you could talk about kind of returning to kind of your own iconography and kind of coming back to it like it's your own visual language and your own cast of characters.
I think for me, I love showing industrial things from the Industrial Revolution, especially from the 20th century and World War II. And in this instance, I'm pulling from, let's say 1920s, 1930s style factory, what do they call it? Tool belts or like conveyor belts that would help with factories. And this series, I think I'm just touching on how humans, or at least the capitalists at the top, are constantly trying to just take advantage of everything. If they could take advantage of the stars, they would. So this is sort of me showing how our world is incongruent with nature and the cosmos.
There's one little constellation in the exhibition right here when you walk in with Star Tap, and that constellation contains one of the oldest paintings in the show, way back from 2017, which isn't that long ago. But can you talk about this painting a little bit? I'll pull up a detail, but I know that was a really kind of important moment for you, and I think for a lot of artists, like they crave that moment when things maybe start to come together a little bit. And you spoke really beautifully about that.
Yeah, the painting on the left is called Claptrap, and I think when I was in grad school, like everyone else in grad school, you kind of struggle. You have identity crisis. You don't know what you want to paint. So I was never really happy with the work I was doing in grad school. I felt like I had the skills there, but the content wasn't exactly there. So flash forward, I get pregnant in grad school. And when we have the baby, God bless him, there's some issues, and he's in the NICU for almost a year. So I'm going to the hospital. Obviously, I'm not in school. I'm not making any work. I'm going crazy. I I'd always been able to kind of run away from problems, but when you're in a hospital, you are literally in a room that you can't run away from. Um, so, and by the way, after a year, my son is doing great. He's healthy. He's doing very well, thank God. So he comes home, and when he was kind of settled, I remember he's a little baby, and he was on the floor, cooing, and I was just like drawing, and I just was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. I think I'll paint this. And that was the beginning of sort of the iconography I have now. I didn't have a eureka moment per se. I think it was just more, I felt like I'm going to follow what feels right instead of this idea of what I should be doing.
I think that's important to point out, that it's not maybe necessarily a moment, but a sustained feeling.
Right. Definitely.
So let's go ahead. Emily, if anybody has any questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat, and we can talk with Emily about any questions you have about her practice, or what it's like to be, to be an artist who's embarking on the career that you are, what it's like just even having your first exhibition. I should mention that Emily will be at SCAD later in April, so hopefully we'll be able to sneak her into some classes and do some studio visits when she comes back for the first time in a little while, right?
I'm dying to get out there. I'm so upset, with the pandemic and everything, we couldn't come down now, but I think things are looking good for the spring. I can't wait to get down there again. It's such a cool town.
Since Thirst Trap was your largest painting to date, do you think you're going to work at that scale, or do you think that maybe not your scale?
I think yes, but it's going to be like it's going to be like once in a while. I really like being kind of, it's in a way less intimidating, but I do like to get out of my comfort zone. So
It's an incredible painting. So go what feels comfortable. So I have a question here from Danny, who says, so what is inspiring you right now?
What is inspiring me? My work. I think all last year I was watching World War II documentaries, which seem extremely depressing, and it is. But for me, it's important for me to process history, because I think it helps my work, and it helps me look how systems can beat down their way of life into people, and it never works, and there's nothing but destruction left in the path. So I couldn't believe when I was watching some of these World War II videos, like how terrified the people must have been. Seeing the tanks come off over Alsace-Lorraine, etc. And to me, that stuff's hard to watch, but I think it's important for me to watch because it helps my work. I also like to watch stuff like Black Mirror and whatever science fiction is happening, because I like to think about scenarios that could happen. And I'm not saying they are or will happen, but any dystopian thing, I'm on top of it.
We have another question here from Evan, who says, I'm a huge fan. I really respond to the finesse of your work. I was wondering if you could talk about the importance of precision in your paintings.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why I paint like that. I just do. And I think when I'm kind of painting a straight line and kind of making it look right, I imagine it's like a surfer catching a wave. I would never in a million years surf or want to, but it's thrilling to me. And I think as an artist, you have to follow those little thrills that you get. So I don't have an ethos for painting like this, other than I just enjoy it and it feels right to me. I think I think there's a tightness in the machines that I paint, but there's a more looseness in the starry skies, and in a way that is intentional, to show sort of the magic of the cosmos and nature, and how machines are so um, exact.
Your paintings are funny. And I think the more time I spend with them, the more aware of your humor in them I am, or they can have a certain type of humor. Maybe they're not funny, but they have a type of humor. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think I can't help but be funny sometimes in the work, and sometimes it's just the title makes it funny, and I can't even. I'm not even trying to per se, but I love that there's some humor there with the titles, like Thirst Trap, for example. I love to hear what the kids are saying. Email me at furvisions@gmail.com if you have any cool sayings. Maybe I'll use them in my paintings. I think the tongues can be really funny too. I don't know. I think like I before I always wanted to be really, really serious in my work. Um, but once I started kind of this, after my kid was born, I think it's okay to be funny once in a while, because sometimes you can get your point across better with humor than anything else. So
Sandra has a question. All of your paintings display such a clear idea. How do you clearly communicate to the viewer a specific idea?
yeah, I think that's hard because I don't think you want to be too preachy. I think you should have themes in your work, themes that you're wrestling with. But when I set out to do a painting, I don't necessarily have a moral narrative, even though I'm kind of showing what I'm showing. But I think if anything, I'm showing the world how it is, rather than being prescriptive about how I think the world should be. So my advice to artists is, your painting doesn't have to have a point, is what I'm saying. This doesn't need to mean this. This doesn't need to mean that. But I think if you kind of show some thematics that you're working with, that what you're trying to say will come through, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it connects with another question that Carlos has. It says, the smaller paintings are more intimate. What kind of experience are you trying to guide the viewer through? Is it a quest, an answer, or open-ended?
I think it's open-ended, but I love the word quest. So maybe you go on a vision quest. But yeah, to me, again, it's just sort of, if I make you think about something in a different way, then cool.
Tracy is wondering if there's a Rolling Stones reference with the tongue.
Not explicitly, but I'd say that's the same energy, like that Rolling Stones, like Mick Jagger, like perverted, like, oh, like I'm so great, I'm gonna lick you or whatever. Same energy. No offense to Rolling Stones fans.
Okay, Deborah is asking, what advice do you have for grad students who are grappling with the content of their work?
It's hard. Grad school's hard, especially like kind of when you graduate and if things are a little quiet, it's hard to keep that momentum, and I get it. I would say follow your curiosity. What documentaries are you watching? What are you reading about? Follow that, and try to get out of your own head a little bit. Try not to overthink work and just make it. Just make a work. You don't have to show anyone. You don't have to put it on Instagram. Just make it and experiment. I think if you're grappling with content, keep grappling, just keep going.
So as we kind of wrap up the conversation, I'm just wondering, how, what it means to you, the show here, like a first museum show, you just came off a string of really successful gallery shows. And I think it's a pretty good moment for you. I'm just wondering how you're feeling.
It honestly feels surreal. I never would have thought I would have a career as a painter. It's all a dream come true, and I just can't believe that I get to do what I like, really truly like to do. And I just am so grateful to everyone in the SCAD as well.
Well, thank you for your time today. Thanks for sharing your work with us. I want to thank everyone who tuned into this conversation. Thanks, Umberto, and thanks to Sanford. Thanks for everybody who helped make it happen. I want to invite everybody to tonight's virtual opening event for deFINE. It's at 7 p.m. It's the virtual opening reception tonight with more SCAD alums, Kaylee Carter and Mojo. And if you all are in Savannah, please come to the museum, and so you can check out Sanford's exhibition, Contradiction, and Emily's exhibition, StarTap. Don't forget to follow SCAD at SCAD MOA on Instagram, and have a nice day, everybody. We'll see you later.